Okay, so welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us today. We're here to talk about elevating employee engagement, not just through big transformation programs, but through the daily workforce experience. Today's session is very practical and focused on how EmpLive helps deskless teams feel more informed, empowered, and valued in moments where it matters. So I'm Emma Chow. I'm the head of marketing for APAC here at Workforce Software and ADP Company. I'm joined by Nick Szitniak, our learning consultant, who will walk you through how this comes to life in EmpLive shortly. But before we get to the how, I want to quickly set the context of why employee engagement looks different for the deskless workforce. So here's what we're going to cover today. We'll look at engagement through 5 everyday experiences. So shift choice, mobile access, time accuracy, leave visibility, and communication. These are all key operational moments employees interact with every day. And when these experiences break down, engagement suffers. So when they work through engagement and it actually functions well, everything should almost be automatic. Okay, great. So just as a little bit of a recap, everything that we're going to go through today is based on our product of EmpLive. So EmpLive is our cloud-based workforce management solution designed specifically for organizations with complex frontline workforces focused on SMB space, particularly in the ANZ market. It brings together rostering, time and attendance, leave, as well as compliance into a workforce management solution that's intuitive, scalable, and real-time. At its core, EmpLive gives both managers and employees clarity and confidence in how work is managed. So one of the key things we see is that employee engagement is shaped by daily interactions. For deskless employees, especially engagement comes with their rosters, pay, how changes are communicated, and how easy systems are to use. When these moments feel unpredictable or manual, trust erodes in the workforce. When these are simple, transparent, and empowering on the other side, engagement improves naturally without needing big cultural initiatives in the workforce. When you have a look at this slide here, these are some of the common engagement pain points we hear from deskless workforces: lack of choice for shifts, uncertainty about pay accuracy, poor visibility of rosters, slow or unclear leave approvals, and overall miscommunication. Individually, day to day, these may feel small, but together it compounds and it just quietly erodes trust and retention in the workforce. The key takeaway from this slide is that engagement improves when organizations remove that friction from everyday work, and technology plays a really critical role in doing that consistently. Okay, so how does EmpLive elevate engagement? It focuses on 4 outcomes employees care deeply about, and that comes through clarity, control, trust, and connection. When you think about clarity, it's really knowing when and where they're working, even when things change for an employee. When it comes to control, the ability to view rosters, request changes, and manage work with confidence. Trust, it's trusting that your time, pay, and approvals, leave, etc., is accurate. And when it comes to that overall connection, it's consistent communication that keeps your employees informed rather than reacting at the last minute for the manager and the employee. When putting together these 4 things in place, engagement improves as a natural byproduct of a better workforce process. So I'll now hand it over to Nick, who is going to go through each of the features and functions that really allow EmpLive to elevate employee engagement. Nick.
Thank you very much, Emma. So thank you, everyone. What we're going to be looking at here, so a few different areas, so kind of working with our shift communications, a few different ways around that. We'll then also be looking at a few different functions within the mobile app, so some new things, looking at our clocking functionality, managing leave and unavailability, and a little bit of communication as well. But the first thing that we're going to be looking at here is just a few different ways that we can offer shifts out to our employees. So we're going to be looking at single shift offer, multi-offer, and also shift bidding. So I'm going to be focusing on the roster manager by employee screen here, but most of these are also available in the roster manager by role screen too. Just starting off here, just looking at a simple shift offer that we can send out when we've got a specific employee in mind already. Now, even here, there's a few different ways to do this, and it usually comes down to personal preference or exactly where you are in the workflow as to which one of these that you would actually use. So the first way to do this would just be using the drag and drop functionality to assign an employee to a shift. And we can then just click onto the shift tile, go to more actions and quick offer. And that shift then immediately changes to this W roster code saying that it is waiting for a response from our employee. And then once our employee has responded, if I just refresh the page here, we now have this Y roster code to indicate that they have said yes and agreed to work. Now, another way that you can do this as well, just by adding information directly to the shift rather than using the drag and drop. So if we just click into one of our shifts, we can add the information for our employee, and then we put in our Q roster code over on the right-hand side. And then once we're ready, we can just save and send straight away. And again, we have that W roster code letting us know that we're waiting for a response. And again, just refreshing, we have the Y roster code because my employee said yes to that shift offer. Now, just a bit of a quick hint here, these two methods do basically the same thing, just in a slightly different way. So where I use the drag and drop and then quick offer, that is just a shortcut so that you don't need to manually add in all of that information. It just does everything for you in one go. Now, there is also the option to send out multiple shift offers at the same time. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is just go to one of these empty shifts, add in all of my employees' details as I've done before, and then just save that shift. Okay, and now we've just got our Q roster code sitting here on the roster, letting us know that it's actually ready to be sent out. And then I'll go ahead and do that for the other shift that is on the same day. Okay, so again, that is sitting there ready to be sent. Now, when we actually want to go ahead and send out these shift offers, we can go straight to our send button at the top of the screen here, click send, and then we can just review any of the shifts that are ready to be sent. Now, if I'm happy with all of these, we can just click onto send, and then those are sent straight away with the W roster code just saying that we are again waiting for a response. And if I just refresh the page here again, so we have one shift where our employee has said yes, and another one where the employee has said no. And also just noting here that when we have an employee who has said no to a shift offer, it also puts that shift back up into the unassigned row because of course that shift wasn't actually filled. Just moving across here to a different period, we're going to look at using the multi-offer function. Now, we will also shortly be looking at the shift bidding functionality, but this is just a classic multi-offer where we send out the offer to a group of employees and it's first in, first served. So going to the shift over on the Thursday here, and then down at the bottom, we have the section for multi-offer employees. And now here we can say the maximum number of employees that we want to allow this multi-offer to be set to. So I'll just say that it's 15 employees here. And now there's a few ways that we can actually add employees to the multi-offer from this stage. So we can add in manually, we can use search or autofill, or just a combination of all three. Now to start, I'm just going to use the search button over on the right here. And then on our far right-hand side, we have all of our different search options. And from there, we can do things like narrow down our employees based on abilities, employment type, and so on. Here, though, I'm just going to say that I only want full-time employees. And then clicking search, I now have 8 employees who match all of the search criteria here and are also, of course, available to work and so on. And then all we need to do is just click onto our plus icon on the left of the employee's name, and it adds them into the multi-offer employee section on the left-hand side. Now, rather than going through and manually adding in all of the other employees that are possible here, I'm just going to close that search section and now use the autofill to find the rest of the employees to include in the multi-offer. So when I click autofill, it has filled 6 spaces for me. Now, I actually have 15 spaces that I've set for that multi-offer. I added 2 employees in manually, and I also got 6 employees just then via the autofill. I just don't actually have 15 employees who are eligible to work on the shift, but it will try and find 15 spaces where possible. But that 15 that I've set is just a maximum. So now that those spaces are filled, I also just want to note here that for any of these employees, particularly those that were auto-filled, if you've got a specific reason that you don't want to include them in the multi-offer, you can just remove them. So you can just select and delete their names from that shift. But you'll also see that for anyone where we have used that autofill function, we also have the AF tag, so we can see exactly how they got onto that multi-offer as well. But once we're actually ready, if we're happy with all of those employees, we can just go straight to save and send. And we now have the W roster code for all of those employees while we're waiting for a response. Now, if I just refresh the page here again, we can see that my employee, Jane Doe, has actually accepted that shift offer. So there is the C roster code for confirmed. Now, whenever we've got an employee who accepts a multi-offer and they are actually the first person, they'll receive another message back letting them know that they are indeed confirmed and will be working on that shift. Now, if I go to the shift tile, in the edit shift window, we can see that Jane actually has that MO tag here for multi-offer, so we can see how they got onto that shift. And then down at the bottom, we can see some other roster codes for the other employees. So the N roster code, of course, means that the employee has said no to the shift. And the Z roster code means that the employee has said yes to the shift, but only after it was already filled by somebody else. So when that happens, the employee is also going to get another message back saying that they're no longer required because the shift has actually been filled. Now, that normally only happens when it's done via SMS, since the mobile app will actually just tell them that the shift is no longer available, so they can't actually respond from that point. Now, the M roster code is just to let us know that there was no response from the employee. So it's slightly different to that W roster code, which we saw, which means waiting, because the shift is actually filled now, but technically not waiting. Now, normally when we have that W code waiting for a response, the system will treat the employee as unavailable so that we avoid having conflicting shift offers and shifts on our roster. But that's no longer needed after the shift has been filled by somebody else, so we just have the M roster code instead. Aside from that, though, it is now basically the same as any other shift in the system at this point. So it's filled, we've got an employee working there, and there's nothing else that we really need to do. Now, the final thing that we're going to look at here for our communication with employees is the newer shift bidding functionality. Now, this is something where there's a couple of different ways, again, that this can be done. With our multi-offer that we just saw, that sends out a message to our employees. Now, shift bidding, though, actually just makes the shift available to the employees. And the employees will then actually need to go into their rosters and look for those shifts and then request or pick up the shifts. So we'll take a quick look at both of our different methods for shift bidding, how they work both from the manager's perspective and also the employee's perspective. So for the first one, I'm just going to go to the shift on the Wednesday here. And clicking into that shift in our multi-offer section, it now looks a little bit different because for that last multi-offer I showed, I actually had the entire shift bidding function disabled, but now I've got this switched on so that we have multiple methods available to us. So if I click into method and say post as vacant, first in, first served, that's fairly self-explanatory. First employee to actually say that they'd like to work on that shift will actually get to work that shift. Now, we can also say which types of employees it will be viewable to. So for example, we could say we only want it to be available for our casual employees. But here I'm just going to leave it as all employees and then just click save. And that is now marked on the roster as vacant. Now on the Thursday, I'll go to the shift here as well. And this time under method, I'm going to select post as vacant manager approves. And here again, we can say what types of employees we actually want the shift to be visible to, and also the number of employees we want at a maximum to be able to request the shift. But the default here is 5, but I'm going to say that up to 10 employees can request that shift. And that just means that once 10 employees have actually requested the shift via ESS, it's no longer going to be visible to anybody else. So it's then just waiting for that final approval from the manager. But if I now just click save, that shift is marked as vacant, and now both of them are ready to be picked up by our employees. Now, from the employee's perspective in the mobile app, employees are actually going to have this section here under rosters called vacant shifts. So clicking here, my employee can see both the Wednesday and Thursday shifts that I had made available. So if I click into the shift on the Wednesday, this is the one where I said that it is first in, first served. So the message that we have at the bottom is pick up shift. So by clicking that, it's now pending confirmation. And there we go. We now have a message coming back to us saying that the shift has now been picked up successfully. And as the employee, if I click onto that message, we just get the details of that confirmed shift. If I go back to my vacant shifts, we still have that Thursday shift here. So again, if I click into the shift, this one doesn't say pick up shift, it says request shift. And because this one might have other people requesting it, and the manager is the one who's going to decide who will actually end up working there. So if I click onto request shift, this is now pending confirmation. But in this case, though, that confirmation is not going to come through straight away because we are still waiting for the manager to decide. So if I just go back onto my main rosters tab, so we've actually got the pending shift section, and we can see that it is pending approval. Now back from the manager's side, if I refresh here, we can see that that is now updated. So first of all, for the shift on the Wednesday, where it was first in, first served, if I just click onto that shift, okay, so we can see John Doe has accepted that, and we have the C roster code to say that it is confirmed. Okay, and then fairly straightforward, also have the SB tag just to let us know that it was done via shift bidding. Now, if I go into the shift on the Thursday, this one is slightly different. Now, again, I did say that up to 10 employees could actually request this shift, but we don't need to wait for all 10 of those spaces to be filled. It's just giving you a maximum before it's no longer going to be visible to any more employees. But in this case, just with the 2 employees, both are sitting here as pending. And we can go over to this review button on the right-hand side. And then it brings up some information about our employees' rosters so we can see what is actually happening at this point in the period. But once I've made my decision, I'm just going to say that for the first employee, I'm going to click in and go approve. And for the second employee, I will decline. And then once I'm happy with everything there, I'm just going to click save, and that's updated straight away. And again, we have that C roster code there because our employee is now going to get a notification saying that they are actually confirmed for that shift. And of course, anyone who has declined will also get another one saying that they are not required. Now, just also as a bit of a quick note here, while we're looking at this functionality around our shift bidding, something that is basically brand new, has only really been out for a week at this point, is the option to do this for multiple shifts at the same time. So rather than having to go through and mark each one as vacant individually. So the way that we would do that is just by clicking onto our select button on the top right corner here. And we can then just click the shift that we're after, and then click onto post as vacant at the top. So now it's fairly straightforward here. We just select the method that we want to use, either first in, first served or manager approval. To say first in, first served, we can also choose what types of employees it's viewable to, but I'm just going to now post as vacant. And from that point, it works basically the same as what we saw a moment ago. It's really just about making it easier to do this for a larger number of shifts all at the same time. Now, next thing we're going to be looking at is just in the mobile app, our mobile single sign-on. Now, this is something brand new here on that log on screen, so mobile single sign-on or SSO. So if we click onto sign on with SSO, it then just allows us to put in our company email address. Now, this does actually require configuration. It's in addition to the single sign-on that was previously available only through the web version of ESS. Now, if that is something that you would like to get some more information about and actually have configured, you can contact your account manager directly or the workforce software support team. Okay, but here I am just going to log in normally, and we're going to be looking at Mobile Clock Live. Okay, so on the Mobile Clock Live screen, this is only going to be visible to employees who have actually been enabled for Clock Live and in sites where Mobile Clock Live specifically has been enabled as well. So you might have some employees who are not going to be using Clock Live at all. They are not going to see this screen. But when it is enabled, it's the first thing that will show up when somebody opens the app and logs in. So we can see here that as I go to clock in, because my employee is a few minutes early for the shift, it's filled all of the details from the roster. So we have the site, department, role, and job already pre-filled. Now, employees can still change these details if required, but as I scroll down, we also have a map here because my employee is set up for location-based clocking. So we can make sure that our employees are actually where they're supposed to be when they're clocking in and out of their shifts. And we can also see here that we have a red location pin for where our employee should be, and also a blue location dot for where we actually are. Now, normally what we would do is just clock ourselves in for the shift. And then of course, at the end of the day, we would just clock out as normal. Now, my employee was not actually at the correct location. As we can see here, they're a little bit further away. So from the manager's perspective, I now have this widget on my dashboard, location variations today. And I've got one here for North Sydney. So I can just click directly onto the link here and it will take me to the location variations screen. Now we can see here that there's an issue with the location from when my employee clocked in. Once they clock out, if there's a problem with the location, then it will show up in here separately as well. But we can see my employee was actually clocking in for their shift. It was the start of the day. It wasn't a location match, and we can also see roughly how far away the employee actually was from where they should have been. Now, in some cases, the employee will have actually been at the correct location. You might have seen them at work, whatever it might be. There's always going to be some limitations around location services on mobile devices. Now, if there were actually an issue with where your employee had clocked in for their shift, that's something that you would be following up with outside of the EmpLive system, generally finding out what happened and then dealing with that issue. But if it's determined that it wasn't actually a problem, they were at work on that day, there's nothing else that needs to be done there, we can just mark that as viewed and get it out of the way. And there's nothing else that we really need to do at that stage. Now, you'll also see similar information showing up on the employee timesheet screen. So whenever there's any location-based clocking that's occurred, you'll have a location pin icon like I do here. So the one that I've got is red to say that there was a problem. If there wasn't any problem at all, it would just be a green location icon instead. But if I click onto the icon here, we can just see information about the actual start time since this one was actually rounded. And we can also see again that it wasn't a location match and information about the distance and accuracy. But there's nothing else that we really need to do here because we've already acknowledged that this particular one was not a problem. Now, also just to quickly note here as well, in some cases, you might have a gray location pin icon. Now, that would be to let you know that there was no location captured when the employee clocked in or out of their shift, even though there was supposed to be. So that's typically just going to happen in instances where an employee has disabled location permissions for the EmpLive app or just for their device as a whole. Now, if that were an ongoing issue that you had employees who were just not allowing that location services permission, that's not something that can really be managed from the EmpLive side. You'd be looking at changes in policy or potentially providing alternatives. Also important to note there as well, with location-based clocking, it's only going to capture the employee's location on the clock in and clock out events. So it's not going to track them throughout the entirety of their shift. And of course, it's not also going to be tracking them outside of their work time. Okay, now, going back to the app again, we're also going to take a quick look here at managing leave. So in the leave request screen, employees can see both leave requests and leave balances. So if I just click into this leave request, I can see the basic details of the request, dates, times, comments, type of leave, and so on. But going back, can also go into our leave balances, and we can see any leave balances that are made available for employees to view. You might have some that are actually not visible to employees, so they'll only see what has been specified. But here, I'm going to go ahead and actually create a leave request as the employee. So clicking add. And then the date is already correct here. I don't need to worry about that. I'm just going to choose the leave type, which here is going to be personal or sick leave. And now there's a slight change in this screen because we have our sick leave configured here so that we can also add attachments. So things like medical certificates. So that's something that can be configured for different types of leave, not obviously going to be required for something like annual leave, but for sick leave, that is perfectly reasonable. So as the employee, I can go ahead and start adding in that medical certificate. You'll also be able to add in a company policy, which is visible to employees. I've just got a very basic one here, but I'm going to go ahead, take a photo of my medical certificate, confirm that that's all fine. And then I can save and submit the leave request. So that's now submitted, and I can also see that on the main leave request screen as well. Now, from the manager's perspective, when we're on our leave request screen, we can actually see that attachment here. And you can actually click to download the file or even delete it once it's no longer required. Now, also just to note there, you might have some people who are able to access leave requests for that site, but only the leave approver themselves is going to be able to actually open and download that file. For anybody else, it will just say attachment yes or no, since this is sensitive personal information. Now, you might also have a person who has actually submitted a leave request, and at the time, they didn't actually have a medical certificate available to them. So they will still have the option, even after the leave request has been submitted and approved, to upload a medical certificate, and then the leave approver will also get an email just to let you know that a leave attachment has been submitted separately. But back to the mobile app again, we're also going to take a quick look here at our unavailability. Now, we use unavailability to prevent an employee from being rostered at a certain date and time. Okay, so you might have things like part-time or casual employees where they're not going to be working every single day or not available to work every single day. So you can have a recurring unavailability that will cover that. But even for full-time employees, if they can't work on a specific day or a specific part of a day, that can go in as a once-off. There's quite a few different ways that it can be used just based on business needs. Now, they can be set up so that it's only done by the manager within EmpLive, but can also be made available to the employees themselves to actually submit these requests, which will then be approved by their manager. So we can see here, I've got one on Monday the 27th, and that's unavailable from midnight till 11 a.m. So employee can work anytime after 11 a.m. on that day. Now, I'm actually going to go ahead and quickly create a couple of unavailabilities for my employee. So the first one I'll do, clicking on add, it's just going to be once off. Select the dates that I'm after here. And then when I click save, that's now added successfully pending manager approval. And when I go back, we can see it there as well. It shows up as pending manager approval too. Now, clicking on add again, the next one that I'm going to do is on a recurring basis. So here we would just select the start date for the unavailability pattern. And then I can say if it's going to be every 1, 2, 3, or 4 weeks. I'm just going to say that it's every 2 weeks here. And then I'm going to say that it is every second Monday. So I'll just select the Monday of week 1 of that fortnightly pattern. And then finally, we also just need to put in the end of the recurrence pattern as well. So we'll say the 25th. And then that's ready to go. Now, you can also add in comments as an employee to explain why you actually want that unavailability, but I'll leave that for now and just click onto save. Again, that's now added in successfully pending manager approval. From the manager's perspective there again, we have the unavailability approvals widget. Okay, so I've got 2 unavailabilities that are awaiting approval here. If I just click onto that number, it takes us straight to the unavailability pending screen. And for the one that I want to action, I can just click onto view, see information about the unavailability request, and then approve or decline it from here. So I'm just going to approve this first one. And then going into the second one this time, I'm actually going to add in a comment as well, because I'm going to be declining it. So then clicking on decline, that is now declined successfully. And if we then just go back onto our dashboard, we can see that there are now no unavailability approvals that are still outstanding. Now, while we are still on the topic of leave and unavailability, something that you'll also be able to see in the roster manager by employee screen. So we can see here that on the Monday and Friday, my employee has unavailabilities, and it also shows the times there. So Monday only up till 11, and then on the Friday, that is all day. You'll also be able to see that for approved leave requests. So as soon as a leave request is approved for the employee, that period will have those grey shift tiles that show up automatically. And if they actually have a shift on the roster during that leave period, it will automatically be marked with an L roster code like I've got in the middle here. Now, in order to actually see those grey tiles when your employees have leave or unavailability, or even if they're actually working in a different location, what you can do is go to the gear cog icon on the top right corner here. And the setting for that is show all shifts, approved leave, and unavailability. So it only needs to be switched on once, but it is incredibly helpful to have here so you can just see when employees are not actually going to be working. Now, the final thing that we're going to be looking at here is sending out push notifications to our employees. So these are custom free text notifications rather than the ones that are automated when we send out things like shift offers to our employees. So we can get to this through our employees dropdown and push notification and send. And here, this is where we can actually write out our message, select who it's going to go to, and then send it out. Now, important thing to note in this screen is that under method, we have either send push notifications if available, otherwise send SMS, or send push notification only. Now, where this is helpful is, as we can actually see down at the bottom, only active employees who have used a mobile app within the last 6 weeks with notifications enabled will actually be sent a push notification. So you might have people who have not logged in quite a long time. They might have uninstalled the app altogether, or they might have just disabled notifications from the app. So for them, they'll still be sent an SMS message, provided that their number is in the system, of course, as a kind of backup or failover. You've got a bit more of a guarantee that everyone who you've actually selected is going to receive that message one way or another. But now, putting in the actual message itself, we can then select all or just specific employees if we want. We'll select all here. And then we can go ahead and send out the notifications to our employees. So clicking on send notification and confirming. Okay, so our employee has now received that notification, and they can then just click onto the notification and see the details of the message that we've sent to them. Now, just to note here as well, employees can't actually respond to these notifications directly. It's not intended as a two-way conversation between the manager and the employee. It's really just to have a sort of broadcast message that you can send out to a group of employees. Okay, now, it's also really helpful in certain situations where, like, if you have posted a large number of shifts as vacants, as we just looked at earlier, you can actually then send out a message to all employees, letting them know that they should have a look. Now, in this screen, it does also just show all of the employees associated with that site. So you're either selecting all or manually selecting employees. But you can also use the advanced employee search screen to narrow down employees by other criteria and then send them a message. We won't be looking at that here, but it is another option that's available. You'll also be able to see a history of push notifications that have been sent out. So if I go to the employees dropdown again, push notification and history, I can now see all of the notifications that have gone to my employees. Now, in this case, only one employee actually received the push notification that I'd sent out because the rest don't have the app installed or haven't logged in before. So those are actually received as SMS messages, which we can actually see in the SMS history screen. Okay, so again, we just have that guarantee that the message is received by all of our employees. Okay, that is really it there from my side. So back over to you, Emma.
Thank you so much, Nick. What I've just been doing behind the scenes is just answering all of the questions that have come through. So for those that haven't had a response yet, our EmpLive product team is just coming back with me to me with these responses. So I'll make sure to post those as soon as they come through. As we wrap up today, I just want to bring it back to what we were going through in terms of how EmpLive really focuses on these moments of removing friction from day-to-day experiences for employees. What I introduced before Nick went through our demo is the concept of these 4 themes of clarity, control, trust and overall connection. This is really important with the idea of elevating employee experience, and it just creates this space of overall a smarter workforce process and experience day to day. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you to Nick for putting together this wonderful presentation of showing all of the key new features and functions that are available in EmpLive that allows in creating that elevated employee experience. What I'll just do quickly at the moment is just go through some of the questions and responses we've been able to reply back with, just in case any of those are top of mind for you. So the first one is, how do I set up mobile single sign-on for EmpLive? So a few people have actually sent through that question. Please reach out to support at wfsaustralia.com, and our support team will send you some documentation with how to proceed with this setup. Does mobile single sign-on cost anything to set up? Okay, so there were a few questions that came through with regards to this. Yes, there is a once-off service fee, but the support team will be able to share more information regarding that through the documentation. For those that are specifically around shift bidding with EmpLive and how to enable this, a client administration at your company can enable their feature in EmpLive, firstly from configuration, employee portals, and then rosters. If you're not 100% sure about that, or if there's not an assigned client administrative person, then please just reach out to support at wfsaustralia.com again, and they should be able to help with that. There was also another question just with regards to the actual mobile app itself. When I use the mobile app, I don't see all of those features. How can I enable them? So again, just reach out to support at wfsaustralia.com, and then we can just look at what features and functions aren't available and point you in the right directions as how to get that started. One other question was, can we attach files via the app instead of taking a photo? So that response just came through. Not yet. We are working on including adding a photo or screenshot from a user's photo library or a file, and that's part of our roadmap for later in 2026 as well. So Nick, there's lots of questions coming through, which is wonderful from the audience, just to show engagement and curiosity. So what we might do, just conscious of time now, is wrap up there. And if there are any more questions, please feel free to send it through to your dedicated account rep or the support team, and we'll get those answered for you. But in the meantime, we just want to say thank you to everyone again for your interest in EmpLive, your extended partnership with Workforce Software, and your ongoing curiosity around elevating employee engagement through EmpLive as well. So with that being said, please enjoy the rest of your day. For any questions that haven't been answered, we will get a response back to you as our product team is going through that. And otherwise, yeah, Nick, thank you again. And thank you, everyone.